Okay, shall we start? Right, great stuff. Okay, so let's start. So first and foremost, there will be more attendees coming in as we continue with this session. But for those who have joined, thank you so much for coming on board to our ahead of the game in the built environment interview series. So I am Ethan, and I am the director for Annexion Partners. And my colleague Brandon is with us today as well. So he will be the one facilitating the Q&A session. So for those who are unfamiliar with the Annexion brand, we are a global headhunting consultancy firm specializing in the built environment sector. As our tagline goes, we aim to power possibilities for our stakeholders in the sector in multiple ways. And one of them is to co-create or to create a platform where we can share knowledge and expertise in the sector with one another in the community so that we can always be ahead of the game. And in the first of the many sessions moving forward, I'm very excited to have my guest for this event. He's Mr. Gan Chong Min. He's the Managing Director for Investment Management in Asia for Lendlease. So maybe let me give you a little bit of introduction about himself, right? Before that, he was the Managing Director for Fund Management in CapitaLand China, and he has built a very distinguished career in China over the past 12 years before he came back to Singapore. So contrary to the career path of most real estate professionals, Chong Min came from an electrical engineering background, and he started his career as an electrical engineer, peaking as the head of electronics and systems group in Chartered Industries of Singapore before he pivoted his career to real estate. So today, you will hear Chong Min's story on his career trajectories, the highs and the lows, and his take on how young and mid-level professionals can forge a successful path in real estate. We also open the floor to Q&A after the interview. Nevertheless, right, during the course of the conversation, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A button, below. Please click on it, type in your question, along with your name, company, and position. Due to time constraints, Brandon will be curating the questions, and after the interview, we will then Brandon will take on the mic to ask the questions and post them to Chong Min. All right, so I will pass the mic over to Chong Min. So how are you, Chong Min?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me. Very privileged. I think we know each other, not very long actually, but it feels like ages, because we share a lot of commonality. Yeah, we talk a lot.
Absolutely. Every session with Chong Min is always a blessing for me. I learn so many things every session. I will bring Brandon for lunch with you one of these days.
Yeah, I enjoy all the lunches and all the chats, and I learn a lot from you too.
Thank you. Yeah. So, well, obviously we know each other very well, and I'm very, very excited to have you on the show. But for the benefit of the audience, I'd love to drill in a little bit deeper, in terms of your career trajectories. I mean, you recently joined Lendlease as the Managing Director for Investment Management across APAC. Could you run me through what is your role currently?
Yeah, sure. So hello everybody. Very glad to be on this session. So this is just want to get the record straight. This is purely a personal involvement. So by no means pro bono. I'm not charging anything. So by all means, I'm not representing Lendlease. I'm representing myself, Gan Chong Min. Okay, just to share some experience, of my journey in real estate, and as a career person, as a person who typical Singaporean, who live and work, and trying to provide for the family, and at the same time, build a career for myself, and hopefully get somewhere. Okay, so anyway, okay, what do I do at Lendlease? Okay, I'm as you said, I'm currently the Managing Director of Investment Management Asia at Lendlease. So what I do is everything that has got to do with investment management, so including fund management. A large part of it is actually fund management, fundraising, investment management, as well as asset management. That means managing the portfolio assets in the various funds, because these various funds are actually platforms which hold some of the commercial assets, for example, shopping malls, offices, underneath that platform, for investments by institutional investors. So for those who are not familiar with Lendlease, we are actually the manager of Parkway Parade. You all know Parkway Parade, right? At Marine Parade, Gem in Jurong, Paya Lebar Quarter PLQ, and 313 at Somerset.
Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay, that's short rundown of what I do.
Fantastic. Before Lendlease, you had also built a strong career at CapitaLand in China, right? So what do you do over there?
Okay, it's actually pretty similar at CapitaLand. I was the managing director for fund management in China. So I'm in charge of a portfolio of assets, mixed-use development assets with offices, hotels, service residences, shopping mall, and even luxury residences. So we brand this as a Raffles City. You guys are familiar with Raffles City, right?
Yeah.
So there are actually 9 Raffles City projects in China. So I'm the fund manager that takes care of the different fund and JV platforms which hold all these Raffles City projects over in China. So for example, cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Chengdu, Chongqing, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, and Ningbo.
Obviously you have such a great responsibility there, right? And you have built a great career in China. What made you decide to leave CapitaLand in China and return to Singapore?
Well, I left Singapore for China in 2008. So that's quite a while ago, more than a decade ago. So I moved my family there. My 2 kids grew up in China, so they have no concept of what Singapore is like as home, So home is China, China is home, okay? And my elder girl was about 6 years old, and the younger one was about 3 years old when we left for China. And having spent more than a decade there, we believe that it is time to come back to our roots back in Singapore, where home is, to spend time with the old folks, and everybody's not getting any younger. So we have been there enough time, so it's time to come back home and spend time with them. And it's also an opportune time because my elder girl just graduated from high school. So imagine, she did her entire education in China. So she's now in the university, and she's gotten into NUS second year.
Wow.
So
no NUS folks today. A lot of SMU folks.
You're SMU, right?
Yes, I was from SMU. A lot of my juniors and seniors are here.
Okay.
Oh, we have an NUS folk. He used to be from NUS.
Okay.
So obviously, the way you make decisions, it shows that you are really family oriented. It shows a lot about your core values. Actually, going back in time, if we take a step back, you made a decision to pivot your career from electrical engineering to pursue a career in real estate. What made you take this step?
Okay, I got to tell stories. History. Lots of stories to tell. Okay, I actually made one more switch in between being an engineer and electrical engineer and real estate. So okay, I'll fill in the blanks. So as you have mentioned, I was a trained electrical engineer, and I did my bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering in the United States. So after graduation, I spent about 6 years as an engineer. So I was writing codes, programming microprocessors, working with circuits and things like that, systems. And before I left the so-called hardcore engineering job, I was actually running a department of more than 20 engineers as the head of engineering department, electrical engineering department, and systems department. But somehow I got a little bit bored with the work. Okay. don't take me wrong. I'm not an impatient person. So I actually worked 6 years. There are some people who don't work a single year as an engineer in their training. Okay.
Yes.
But you know, the work is a little bit repetitive, I would say. You know, a little bit closed. I would say that I didn't have much friends anyway. Not very social. So anyway, I got bored. Like this me personally, engineering is great. You know, engineers are great people. I have to qualify that. It's just me. But sometimes we can get a little bit out of touch of what's out there in the world. That's me again.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit out of touch. So I wanted to see more of the world. So at that time, I was also taking up a part-time MBA, majoring in financial management. So I didn't have time to go full. I didn't have money, not didn't have time. I didn't have money to go full time. So I just got married and all that. So as with a lot of Singaporean youngsters, right?
Yes.
So you know, you got to go for your HDB. You know, sometimes you know, go for a car. You know, things like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have enough money to go full time. So I went part time.
Yes.
So at that time, you know, I just asking my company, say, hey, can I get transferred to the business development and corporate planning department from engineering? So they very graciously agreed. So that was my first switch. So that was when I went into business development. I started doing a lot of investments, M&A projects or mergers and acquisition projects. And that was when I started flying all over the world. So from Europe, US, Australia, New Zealand, China, etc. And I got really, really interested in the Chinese market. So it was early 2000. So I was dabbling with a lot of technology firms and that time China was taking off. So there was no Taobao then. There was no TikTok. There was no Douyin TikTok. There was no Ctrip. There was no Baidu. And there was no WeChat.
What do you have then?
Nothing. Just it just started. Everything just started.
Yeah.
But you know, I visited the boss of Ctrip. You know, he was just starting. Oh, there's a little website that amalgamate different hoteliers, airlines. You sell tickets. You sell tour packages and things like that. That was Ctrip. And Ctrip is now today the largest such a app in the world. I can say that it's in the world. Yeah. So I saw the potential of China and want to get into the market, and very badly. At that time, I said, hey, I got to get into this market. It's growing like crazy. Unfortunately, the company I was with didn't have a China-specific strategy. So then an opportunity from CapitaLand came in late 2008. Oh, no, sorry, in early 2008. And the company was recruiting people to go to China, CapitaLand. So I jumped at it. And then that was how I launched my career into real estate. Yeah, with CapitaLand.
So it was a series of unintended events that made it happen. Right. That's very interesting. So, ever since you got into this industry, right, what surprised you the most?
What surprised me the most?
Yeah.
Well, my biggest surprise is that a lot of the resources that you can find your knowledge from. Yeah. Bear in mind that I was an engineer. Although I was trained in financial management, I was doing M&A projects. I knew nothing, zero, about real estate.
Right.
And I went there fresh, and I realized that real estate is not rocket science. Any training, for example, if you have engineering, if you have accounting, you have economics, you have finance, it's not difficult to get into real estate. And of course, there are other branches of real estate that are really more hardcore, like architecture, mechanical and electrical, civil engineering. Those you need a lot of training. So I'm more referring to real estate finance and real estate investments, okay, or all property management, or the operations of it, the commercial mall operations, office operations. So what surprised me is that you have a lot of resources out there. And if you have a thick skin, you ask people, they are very willing to share. So you can learn a lot of things. So when I went to China, I was put to manage a residential development project, building condos. So I was talking to construction folks, I was talking to contractors, site supervisors, QS, the quantity surveyors, the project managers, the safety people, M&E folks. So you learn a lot of things. And then I attended symposiums, I attended conferences, So if you're thick-skinned enough, you ask, you will learn. So I think the industry is very transparent. There's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of sharing by, different segments of the industry.
And it takes a lot of humility, right? Because, at your level to move into real estate, you mentioned something really that kind of clicks in me when you basically learn from everyone, right? People under you, people above you, basically to learn the nuts and bolts, right? So there's never a day where we build Rome in a day, right? So that's really, really fantastic. I mean, how did your background, your technical understanding, your education actually help you to ease that learning curve?
Well, my background as an engineer, does help a little bit because it was very technical in nature. The analysis, the training in how you acquire knowledge. That part, I think, a lot of disciplines have that kind of training. So I'm not saying that engineering is the greatest discipline that allows you to switch to a different industry because it trains you in ABCD. No, I'm not saying that. Actually, any other discipline like finance, like accounting, economics, all will have that kind of training. So what I gather most is that it's mostly personal, not too much about the background, the technical background. If like what you said, with that humility that you're willing to learn, ask people, Google day in and day out, there's a lot of knowledge out there that you can actually make a transition. It's not a one day or overnight thing. It's a process. You need to go through a process. And step by step, you just amass the kind of knowledge you need. But you have to identify. I always tell people that it's good that you know what you don't know. It's good that you don't know what you know. And that's the best, You know a lot of things, but you don't know. You actually know this. But the worst thing is that you don't know what you don't know. So not knowing what you don't know and you think you are great in the world, but there are a lot of information gap you don't know. So you try to find out what you don't know, make a list of it, go and find that information, go and talk to people and acquire that knowledge.
When you made that, you didn't make the decision. It came by accident. But when you officially step into the industry, right? Were there some occasions where you told yourself that, hey, I want to set myself out to achieve something? What were some of those? And do you manage to achieve them?
Okay. So really, I didn't set myself a goal to become a CEO in X number of years. GM in 3 years, I didn't set that kind of goal, but I did set goal what I wanted to learn. Like what I said just now, a list of knowledge. Hey, I don't know about quantity surveying, how do you get costing out for a project if you want to manage a project? What are the cost of material? What do you consider, what is, GMP, things like that. So those are the gaps that I've identified, and I set goals to go learn them. Yeah. So in a way, when you set your goals of getting yourself competent in your work, i.e. acquiring the kind of knowledge you need for your work, I guess, the rest is more or less like when you are in the right place, the right time with the right people. When the opportunity comes for you to take up a bigger role, larger scope of work, you're prepared to do it, rather than saying that, hey, I can't wear this hat because my head is not big enough, because that role is just too big. It requires a lot more things that I don't know about. So right place, right time, right people, but that's not controllable. But when it comes, you'll be able to grab it. Yeah, that's my point.
Something out of the box, right? Because you mentioned that you didn't know what did the QS do, what were their role, and then you went to ask the QS, right? For your role when you came in, you were looking to manage an asset. It's so tempting to not focus on those really operational technical side of the QS role, because it's so easy to say, hey, you know, I'm just managing an asset from an Excel sheet, or from Word document, PowerPoint slide, right? Especially as an investment manager or asset manager. What made you decide that, hey, I need to really even go down to the ground and learn the nuts and bolts?
Well, I guess it's just my nature. You know, I like to look at details because I always believe in a bottoms up approach. You know, like what you say, you don't build Rome in you know, overnight. So I believe in getting a very strong foundation for myself. So building up the foundation has been my key value all throughout my life. You know, because if you build the castle on the sand, you know, when the tide comes, it all crumbles. So you got to build it on bedrock. You got to build it on really solid foundation. So in order to build it on solid foundation, you got to you know, stack up that foundation from the lowest, the bottomless part. That's what I figured out myself. So if not, you just look at Excel spreadsheet. Somebody can just say something, unless you have a very trusted person who knows everything. You trust him, he tells you that everything, you believe him. But not to say that I'm not a very trusty person with somebody. But you know, it's just my interest to try to find out. Perhaps you would say that that's my training as an engineer. You know, I like to get into the nuts and bolts of things to convince myself. If I can be convinced, then I am in a position to convince my customers, my clients, the people who buy the condominium units, you know, because I know this thing well, and I convince myself I can convince them. So that has been my principle.
That's fantastic. In fact, what you shared reminds me of Elon Musk, right? The theory of the first principles. Always look into the building blocks of what makes a rocket, and then challenge the assumptions. Why does it cost this amount to build a rocket? Why can't we do it with this amount? So let's start from the basic. I think what you shared really it's inspiring, because sometimes in order for us to be innovative, to think out of the box, to come up with solutions, we cannot be just looking at the surface, right? We have to go deep dive, look at the building blocks and ask ourselves, is there a different way to build that building block? Right? Yeah. So really, absolutely. Yes, really fantastic. You know, you have since then climbed up the ladder, right? What do you see as major challenges in climbing up the ladder, and how do you overcome that?
Oh, that's a tough one, man, Ethan.
Yeah. Climbing up you can be politically incorrect since you're being yourself.
yeah, representing myself. Okay, I tell you what, it's a very funny question, because I really don't know how to answer, because I mentioned I did not set out myself to climb that ladder, you know.
Yeah.
So that's fundamentally my you know, my whole value system. I didn't set up myself. Of course, I was doing something that I enjoyed doing, and I was just equipping myself to do it. And in the meantime, the ladder is just there, and if there's a higher step, you know, I take it. So I didn't really set myself, so to speak, to climb that ladder. So this is probably very different from what many younger folks out there may be thinking. You know, make a plan to climb the ladder to be a general manager, to be a CEO in X number of years. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. You can make all these plans, but what does it take to make that plan work? You know, it's again back to the fundamentals. And so that's what I was focusing on. The plan is, the ladder is secondary to me, but the fundamentals are more important to me. But while, you know, just a piece of advice, I will make sure that when you're climbing the ladder, you're not stepping on the bodies of other people. So I mean, do it the right way. I mean, do it with grace, with the right conscience, with righteousness. Then well, we are set to climb the ladder. I'll work out the fundamentals. So if you don't have what it takes, even when the opportunity arises for you, you may not be equipped to take it, you know. So if you talk about challenges, that would be the major challenge to me, you know. Not so much climbing the ladder, but are you ready to climb that ladder? So I always say, like, if you don't have a big enough head, don't wear that big hat. And yeah, but some people can be quite opportunistic, but that's not my principle. Yeah.
So let me challenge you a little bit more. So you mentioned that
Okay.
you didn't want to climb the ladder. Somebody gave you those ladders, those steps. What do you think that? Why do you think that people provided you with those ladders or those steps?
Okay, another good question. I always believe that management is not blind. When you do your job well, okay, when you do your job well, when you perform, when you talk sense in a meeting, you not talk nonsense, and talk in the air. But when you talk solid reasoning with good justification, management notices. So I think the ladder is there in the background all the time. That next step is always in the background all the time. It's just how you put yourself forward, to build that opportunity, to climb it. So yeah. So I'm not working for it, but inadvertently, I present myself as an eligible candidate when the time comes.
Yeah. And you prepared for it, right? And those preparedness was because of your eagerness to learn, to get yourself exposed, from everything from bottoms up. So the dots connected, right? The stars aligned. Okay, that's great. That's great. So, we spoke about quite a number of things, right, in terms of like characteristic skills. But I think let's put it more formally. What characteristics or skills do you think are most important in your view that led you to your success today and continued success in the future?
Okay. When you are, I'm a lot older than many of you there listening. Probably, yeah. Okay. Okay. So I've been through it, been there, done that. So in my younger days, I think the technical knowledge, the fundamentals, the nuts and bolts, those are important. But when you reach a certain level, that's what I want to talk about. Technical and professional knowledge is important in the industrial knowledge industrial domain that you are in. But when you get to that level of seniority, management skills and leadership and people skills will increasingly be more and more important. And at some point of time, it may outweigh technical skills. So there comes a point where you can't just do everything yourself, because you simply cannot, it's not possible, it's not realistic to know every intricate detail, and you have to get professionals to do it. So you have to manage a team, you have to leverage on their collective effort and knowledge to help you succeed. So the teams the team members' individual successes and the successes of the team will become your success. So then you will need the skills to mentor them. You need the skills to make the right decision and help the team so that they can make the right and timely decisions, and recommend the right things to you. So you have to facilitate, for example, constructive discussions, not to get into a situation of, for example, group thing, everybody thinks the same thing. Nah, that's your decision. Or end up having a very autocratic type of decision-making process, like me, or 说了算. It's always me, So, and, with no consultation and whatsoever, no alternative views. So that's a no too. So, you also need very good communication skills to encourage your team to do their best, to boost their morale, and to ensure that they understand that common goal. And in other words, you need to be a leader, not just a manager, but you need to lead them to see that vision, that mission.
So speaking of leadership, what do you see the difference between leader and manager in your eyes?
In my eyes, wow, this textbook answer. Okay. I'm not a charismatic leader. I know I don't have that, air around me that say, I walk in, everybody will wow. Leadership, you got to lead by example. I think that's very important, as always say, and then lead by serving them. Okay. People talk about servant leadership. No, it's very, very, very true. When you are a leader, people look up to you to provide direction, to look at you for leadership. And one of the things that a leader does is actually to help them solve their problem. They're stuck. And then you facilitate the discussion. Hey, do you consider this and do you consider that? Why don't you go back to the basics and then look at this and look at that? you actually facilitate them solving the problem, and they will really, really appreciate it. Because, when they can't solve the problems, they get very frustrated. And there you are, providing leadership, telling them these angles and perspectives that they never, hey, I never considered this. You bring up different views, different things. So I think a leader provides that kind of environment, very encouraging, and also understanding, be a little bit more compassionate, understand their difficulties, and provide them with the tools, to solve their problem.
Fantastic. That's really, really good. So, let's zoom out a bit, right? Now, from your professional lens, what changes in the industry have you witnessed in the past decades of your career?
Oh, okay. A lot of changes. I think, real estate has moved so quickly. I mean, even though it's, brick and mortar real estate are still here to stay. You live in a house, you shop in a shopping mall and all that. I think over the last decade, specifically in real estate finance, that's where my professional area is. Real estate finance, I think from traditional real estate, like buying and selling houses and apartments, to renting office space, shop spaces, owning warehouses. We have seen progression to having these real estate classes becoming the underlying assets or underlying portfolio in real estate private funds and REITs. So from just outright buying and selling, hey, I can securitize it, I can make it, put it on the REIT, put it on the stock exchange, securitize it, and get money out of it, and get recurring income out of it. So that's one of the earlier breakthroughs in real estate finance, having REIT structures. And then there are so-called sale and leaseback or buy and leaseback models for industrial real estate. You don't own the property, you just do a 25-year lease. And that's also the basis of fixed income real estate financial products. Okay. And I also mentioned new real estate classes. Like, for example, now you have a lot of things. You have multi-family housing, you have student accommodation, you have hospitality, hotel, service residence, you have logistics warehouses, data centers, exactly. And, leisure parks and resorts, those can be real estate, income generating. But now hospitality is a bit down because of COVID. And of course, there's prop tech that's coming up, the enabler, on transactions, on VR and AR viewing of, show suites and things like that. And, short of putting, you have augmented reality, sort of putting a real chair or real furniture there, you can actually, imagine. So, of course, that's co-working space, co-living space, community spaces, new concepts, of what I call real estate as a service. Real estate as a service, it's no longer about space provision to the people. Last time it's just space you rent. But it's about providing the services to the guys using your space. And of course, not forgetting, of course, next time, people may be selling real estate on the moon or on Mars. I don't know if that will happen.
We're really exploring those real estate.
So anyway, let your imagination run wild. For example, now, another example I can think of. Now, we are moving into electric cars, right?
Yes.
So the charging stations may be real estate, So somebody buys up a bulk of all these charging stations, okay you rent . So now the telco antenna towers have become real estate. So telcos like StarHub, Optus in Australia, Singtel, they don't want to own the towers anymore, people like Lendlease will build the towers and then lease it out to the telcos. I can lease it out to multiple telcos for 25 years or whatever. So you see, antenna telco towers can be real estate. Why not electric car charging stations? Can be real estate, right?
That's very interesting. I never thought about it. Electrical.
So just let your imagination run well.
Wow. Okay. That's very, very interesting. These are changes that has always been happening and has been happening gradually. Interestingly, COVID-19 happened this year. Do you see the pandemic actually hastening or accelerating these changes? And how do you foresee them further being disrupted?
Okay, so I think COVID-19 definitely, is bringing us to the new normal. So
Yeah.
this has been used so often now in our conversation. What's the new normal? And I don't know, things are slowly unfolding. We've yet to see what is really the new normal. So now landlords are worried, very worried about office space demand. Because we're working from home arrangement, like you and I, this wasn't possible like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We have a conference, and we are both in Singapore,
Yeah.
right? We are not like overseas fair. I'm talking to Australia, I'm talking to Europe fair, but we are both in Singapore. I think you live not too far from my place, right? So,
Totally, man.
but we are doing this. We are doing this. So, and then of course you have team A, team B working structures. So the demand of office spaces will it be as before? I'm not sure, or will it be less? Very likely. So we shall see. So for people who can't work at home, they are also prevented from working in large offices where they mingle with large groups of people, and therefore the health hazards and cross-contamination. So if they really need to go back to the office or need to leave the home, I wouldn't say go back to the office, but leave home to work somewhere else where they can have some privacy, they can have some good network connectivity, they can talk to people. So I'm thinking, would there be a demand for individual capsule-sized working stations or working pods? You go in, it self-sterilizes before you use it. You go in, put on your headphones, your AirPods, and then you have a conference, and then an individual pod.
Wow.
A series of these individual pod. That's real estate. That's the office of the future.
Mm.
And you are protected from contamination, from cross-infection, because you are not mingling with some guy next door, in a cubicle. You have your own enclosed pod with filtered air and things like that. Would that be the new kind of office? I don't know.
Office of the future.
So
Minority Report.
Yeah, office of the future.
Yes.
Yeah, Minority Report. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't know. So and also we talk about everything being done online. Restaurants, cinemas, how are they responding to safe distancing, the demand of the space, and how would this really evolve into more or less a contact tracing, tracking and tracing of your individual encounters with other people. You implant a chip underneath your skin rather than use a safe tracking app from GovTech. Okay, so would that be a possibility? Possible, I'm not ruling out that possibility. So then another thing is that how would marketing be done? There are less people coming together in mass gatherings. So people who come to a place with big adverts, big LCD screen eyeballs, those are no longer possible because people don't gather anymore and go and eyeball, those big banners and adverts. So targeting, foreseeable, targeted marketing and surgical strike. I call it surgical pinpoint, profile you as who you are, what your preferences are, and surgical strike, pinpoint targeting of marketing activities will be very, very important. So that again brings to big data analytics. It will become more and more important. So anyway, it's anybody's guess. So I'm just trying to gaze into a crystal ball, my own crystal ball.
The visionary. Interestingly, right, because when you share this, some of your predictions, right, it's not just purely about real estate. It's a lot of influencing factors that is really creating this new norm, right? You talk about big data analytics, you talk about surgical marketing, from a big tech perspective, right? And even, from a workplace design, definitely that's going to evolve. Just out of the textbook question, recently we look at the news, we see a lot of Chinese companies, because of the US-China tension, right? And quite a number of them are actually looking at Singapore as a hub, right, to further propagate their Southeast Asia or Asia domination. So do you see that as something like a saving grace for the commercial real estate sector?
Well, potentially it all depends on how we make of it lah. If we,
Yeah.
Singapore doesn't get into that political tussle, that
Yes.
tussle between the two countries, we can make a lot of good things out of it.
Mm.
First and foremost, if they set up shop in Singapore,
Mm.
they'll create jobs for sure.
Mm.
For sure, they'll create jobs. But they are looking for people with brains. They are looking for people, young people whom they think will add value to them.
Mm.
So we Singaporeans got to be positioned in such a place or in such a way that we want to be very innovative, very creative, because the Chinese are very, very creative, and that comes from their upbringing. Because China, used to be a one-child, now it's two-child policy. So the society, the economy is incredibly competitive. Okay, so the kids are actually under a lot of pressure to perform, to be very creative. So they grew up in that environment. So Singapore, we are a lot more comfortable, I would say. Of course, not discounting the young people who are actually very good, very driven, very motivated to dream new ideas and things like that. So, but Singapore only has this many. 1% of China, it's, I don't know, so much more,
Yes.
so much more. Yeah. So we have to remain very, very competitive. We have to bring that value to them. If not, they will bring in the Chinese to work in Singapore. And of course, they will lobby the government in time to come to say that, you released, you relax all the S passes because I can't find the right people in Singapore to work for me. So we Singapore, while we want jobs, good jobs, we don't want foreigners to come in. Okay, I'm not getting into politics here. We got to position ourselves to be able to take up those jobs.
Yes. At the end of the day, while we want to continue to maintain a Singapore core, I think it's also important that we keep ourselves upgraded. Again, it's all down to lifelong learning, right? And it's always down to coming back to what you shared earlier on. Be willing to ask, be willing to go from the bottom, and be humble, right? In making sure that we learn from as many people as possible in our trade. So, we spoke about a lot about this disruption in the real estate industry. Because of that, right? What do you think are potential opportunities that could arise from this crisis for the industry?
I think if you look at the present past of this industry, the future is going to be marrying of technology versus the traditional real estate. So the use of technology will become very, very, very important. So the likes of prop tech will become a driving force to creating more and more value in the real estate scene. So I think real estate, while we go to school, we learn about GFA, we learn about how to calculate the traditional stuff. You cannot not get into the technology scene. So I think eventually there will be a blurring of the two distinctive, whether you call it technology, IT, communications, to engineering, and real estate. These two will come very closely and it will merge seamlessly into one. So I think while real estate professionals learn about traditional things, you cannot not get involved in the technology scene, because that's the future of the driving force for real estate. So that's where a lot of opportunities are, I believe.
Fantastic. Just out of the textbook question, right? So what do you think about environmental sustainability? Besides technology, do you think that it will actually influence, real estate as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think more and more awareness about the environment. It's impacting the use of real estate, recycling, the 3 Rs, recycling, upcycling, and things like that. Reusability, sustainable energies, renewable energies, and things like that. And increasingly, a lot of investors are getting into this act to be very responsible investors. So, the Paris 1.5-degree pact. So things like that. The awareness is actually driving the future of real estate in terms of how to become a very responsible user of real estate in this world and very responsible investor of real estate in this world. So that's right. For sure, I think sustainability, reusable energy, renewable energy, that will also be the mainstay. And a lot of this is also to do with technology. Because if you look at solar, photovoltaic cells, PV, renewable energies, all these are increasingly being used more and more. And in some countries in Europe, they are being used very extensively in buildings, in real estate,
Great stuff. So we spoke about some of these opportunities, right? That really could arise from this disruption. Look at the past, present, and future of this industry. What would be the tips that you can share with budding young professionals while looking to establish a career in real estate, or somebody transiting from another industry into real estate?
Okay. Actually, I covered that more or less all over the place. But I think just to put the whole picture together, don't see real estate, for young professionals, don't see real estate as just a space or building. The space and building is just one of the enablers. So you have to bring value to the physical space as part of the offering. Then you can think of new ideas. So I think the advice I would give is that when you look at real estate, when you study a course of real estate, it's very good to get your fundamentals right. Don't restrict yourself to the traditional idea of real estate. So because it's an exciting, very exciting thing, to come into the new space concept, where a lot of things are changing. So get yourself equipped with the fundamental knowledge. That's a must. But you probably may want to join one of those established companies to understand how things are being done, to get the fundamentals right. But it doesn't matter if this company is big or small. Get your fundamentals right. But however, don't let the fundamentals mold you into a very traditional, I call it young dinosaur. You're young, but you're a dinosaur. Okay. I'm old, but I'm not a dinosaur. Doesn't mean that dinosaur is old. Okay.
No, thinking.
Dinosaur means that
yes.
It's the mindset, it's the thinking that means that they will go extinct because they cannot adapt. So there can be old dinosaurs, there can be young dinosaurs too. So it will go extinct. So keep an open and very imaginative mind and have good ideas. And some of these companies that you find in the real estate scene are very, very creative, and they have a lot of good ideas. So if they are not so small, I mean, if they are not so big, so be it. Going to join a startup, I think it's fine. Start joining them and then learn as much as you can, and then start dreaming. So what I'm saying is that this industry is at the brink of many changes, and you call it disruptions, and that's brought about by the advancement of technology and by the awareness in sustainability. And in a sense, are accelerated by COVID. So you jump on the bandwagon and dream of new ideas, because many real estate companies I know, they are dying to find young people who can dream and have good ideas. And again, real estate is not rocket science. It's very easy to understand. What is difficult to do is to find breakthroughs and create new business models. So business models are important, and new product service offerings. Service offerings is important. And we need the young talents with a very creative, innovative mind to do that.
Which brings me to this thought, right? It's always, what you share is someone, you are somebody who is so foresight, right, and unconventional. There are many players in the market today. They are still pretty conventional, and they still prefer to get on the safe side. So for young budding professionals who, let's say, get on an interview and started creating possibilities, and how do we balance that between being full of imagination, but yet at the same time facing that possible rejection that, hey, you need to be realistic. You need to come in and learn first. You need to get the basics right before you start dreaming. How do you balance that for the benefit of this budding real estate guys?
Sure. I mean, okay lah. Your objective must be right, okay? If you want to join a startup in prop tech, you want to join a startup, don't say that I want to come in and learn about the brick and mortar lah. So you got to do your research, what you want to do lah. If you want to join a big giant, in one area where you think, you want to learn, then I think it's a lot of what you want and what the company you think is offering you in that position. If that company offers you to do costing in QS, you go and dream big and tell them prop tech, what am I going to do what am I going to do with you, So I have no right answer lah. I have no answer to that question. It probably depends on what you want to achieve in the next step of your career, where you want to go. But don't be too impatient. My advice is that life is very long. I mean, you join 2 years or 3 years in a company. It's a very small part of your career. Your career can span 30 years. So it's okay not to be too impatient.
I think one thing that you really correctly pointed out is that at the end of the day, it's great to be imaginative and creative. At the same time, we need to be relevant to the role that we applied for, relevant to the opportunity that is presented to us, and think within that relevancy. Because at the end of the day, there are always two sides to a coin, right? Yes, it's great to be in a big giant because we learn the building blocks and then rise from there. The other flip side of the coin is that join a startup and you can be as destructive as you want. But most important is to be relevant. So great point, Chong Min. How about for mid-level professionals or senior level professionals, right, who are continuing to forge a path for themselves in this ever-changing or acceleratingly changing industry? What would be some of your guidance for them?
I think for mid-level professionals who are continuing, I think it will most likely be a similar advice, because you got to still be very, very nimble. You know a lot of things already. You know all the fundamentals already, and you are probably in a stage of your life to want to see some changes now, because you're ready. I assume that you're ready. So be very nimble and adaptive to changes. So when you're already in a position of management or leadership, that's great. And so try to encourage your team to do things differently and more efficiently, and then bring more value. So that's the advice that we want to give to the mid-career professionals. Spend a lot of time with your team, because they look up to you. They look up to you as a leader. They look up to you as a mentor, as a coach. So, I say, don't be lazy. Not in a bad sense that you're not lazy, you don't do work. Some people, I notice that they are lazy, quote unquote, not in a bad sense, but they less communicative. They don't want to communicate too much. You can never communicate too much. So what I mean is that, you communicate with your team, understand their issues, and set very clear goals. And you'll find that good and exciting ideas will come from them, It may not come from you, but you are the facilitator to bring upon that catalyst to get new ideas from your team. So for the mid-career guys, who are probably already a little leader in their own right, leading a team. So the team members, they really will perform well with a clear and well-defined, measurable, and achievable goal. So you have to be in that position to bring that to them. And of course, mid-career, probably I would think this person, he or she probably has family and folks already. So from my own experience, you'll be happy, when your family is happy. So if you're not happy, they'll come bugging you, you know. So that's why some people cannot work at home. I have no problem working at home because they don't bug me. So when your family is happy, you know, you will be happy and you will be able to focus your attention on your work. You know, so also take time to recharge. You know, find time to be with yourself. And then you, I mean, if you have a faith, that's great lah. Because I'm a Christian and my faith has helped me tremendously and given me the peace and the hope and all that, the assurance. So when I do right, folks up there know lah, you know. So I'm a little bit more confident. I don't do things just to please my boss, but I do things that I feel in my conscience is right. You know, so therefore you don't compromise on your principles lah. So the stress we face in this time of COVID especially is really debilitating. It was terrible. So especially mid-career guys you know, you have your wife or your husband, your kids, your parents, of course your work, and then your boss and your subordinates and your team. Sandwich, you know, super sandwich all over the left, right, center. So you really got to manage your stress levels lah. That's my advice. So be good to yourself, be good to others around you, and when you drive your team to perform in a very, very incredibly stressful environment, be a little bit more compassionate and have some empathy lah. So take good care of them. I think they will appreciate it and they will really slog for you. So yeah, that's my take.
It all comes down to what you share, communication, right? Because at the end of the day, being more communicative, there's never access communication, right? There's only too few communication. So you know, if we are able to stay communicative to our colleagues, our team members, our boss, our wives and children, that's how we can then be able to share our vulnerability, share our thoughts, share our challenges. And once we are able to get a common understanding and alignment, that's where we are able to move forward together. So well said. We come to the end of my session, and you know, I'm very happy to get my team member Brendan to you know, share with some questions that some of our attendees have in mind. So I'll pass over to Brendan.
Hey, Chong Min. Hi,
Hi, Brendan.
Thank you so much for sharing. Sorry, is it reverberating? Is there an echo currently? Do you? Sorry about that technical error. But
I hear a little bit of echo.
Again, for sharing, I think for me personally, at least, I learned a lot about you know, your journey. I think it was really quite insightful. I think a lot for the attendees as well, right? Because personally, we have a lot of questions ranging from your personal sort of experience all the way to like how to move forward in terms of their own careers, right? So I think one of the questions that someone from the attendee actually asked, they prefer to keep anonymous, right, was that we talked about the sort of challenges that you had, you know, when you move from an engineer all the way up to you know, into the corporate, into the sort of real estate space, right? What was the singular most difficult time or that moment in your career that you remember, or you know, and how do you actually overcome that?
Okay, I think from engineering to okay, the singular most difficult experience I had was actually not so much the lack of technical knowledge or the lack of exposure to the industry, but more so is that cultural difference, because I had to go to China from Singapore. You know, I could speak reasonably good Mandarin because I came from what they call a SAP school, you know, where you know, years back, you know, Chinese and English. So, but I didn't use Chinese for many years. So after A levels or after Sec 4, I never touched Chinese, you know. So NS, you know, university. But that's not the problem, you know. Chinese language, you can just speak it, but it's the culture. You don't know the culture of China. You know, and you think that you're yellow skin, the Chinese is all yellow skin, and you can speak the language. No, it's not true. So the culture is so different from Singaporean. So a lot of Singaporeans who went to China, got into trouble in a sense that, can't fit in, the kind of culture, the way they do things there. Chinese call it 水土不服. That's, I think, is the biggest challenge. So getting in tune with how they do things around there, and what are the likes and dislikes, and what they mean by saying 我们看一看哈，我们研究一下，我们应该有这个可能性 but actually it's
I see. That's essentially the no for them.
Correct. They don't say no outright,
I see.
So you got to read in between the lines. And that's the difficult thing for me. So again, you observe, you look at how other people deal with things, and you learn, Yeah.
I see. I hope that answers some of the questions there that you had when if you were to go to the working in China. I think is really understanding the sort of the fine lines, right? Understanding the sort of cultural difference and not just speaking that language, right? Okay. Right. So we actually have another question. Okay. The question is that I think you covered a little bit on this, but I think the attendee was actually hoping to find out a little bit more. We talked a bit about always going dig deep into understanding the sort of specifics and learning from ground up, right? The first principle. What sort of resources do you actually rely most to keep expanding your knowledge, and keep yourself updated within the real estate industry?
I think you be a little bit more adventurous to put yourself out there, and ask, for example, if you join a company that's big enough, okay, there should be opportunities for you to get into a situation for job rotation. I think that's a fantastic way to get yourself into a situation where you can learn things from different departments. So I was very fortunate. So I rotated, within a few roles in the company. So every role, something new gets put before me, and you just got to be more adventurous. And don't care so much about promotion. To me, a lot of people care about promotion. Don't care so much about, if I leave this current role, I go to a new place, a new department, I start from scratch, right?
Yeah.
After a while, it pays off at the end of the day. So a lot of people have a very singular path. I want to be in this department or in this scope. I want to just go forward, upwards. So I think that is a very good way for you to learn, to equip yourself. And of course, I mentioned, just talk to more people, ask around, and even people seemingly that the people that you least find least suitable to give you knowledge, they can. So don't reject anybody who wants to have coffee with you. I think if you have that kind of mentality and the spirit of learning is there, you can learn from anybody. Yeah, that's my take.
I understand. Any tips in terms of like maybe articles or maybe specific websites or communication tools that might help you to along this way?
Well, get yourself into the market publications from the big four, big five. For example, people like JLL, CBRE, Savills, Cushman, they publish a lot of information, free. So read them, and then try to join some of these conferences like PRE conference, NREF conference, and things like that. ULI, things like that. You will learn from the experience for people, the presenters, the speakers, the panels. So any avenue out there, I think you guys probably know a lot more about Singapore because I just came back to Singapore. So I'm not very in tune with Singapore. I'm going to re-educate myself, rediscover Singapore. But I know what's out there in China, So I think a lot of these free articles, free publications, just read. You'll find a lot of information in there. That's why I made a statement that this industry is pretty transparent. There's a lot of information out there. waiting for you to discover.
Okay, I hope that helps. So, and one other question, right? I think with respect to the environmental sustainability portion where we covered slightly earlier, the question is actually really the question is actually to you is which real estate or which REIT do you think is actually well positioned currently in terms of the kind of environmental sustainability efforts they're putting in, and actually why do you think so? And do you think this is actually the way forward for us?
Well, wow, I'm getting into a little bit of sticky ground. I don't want to make comments about
just
cause,
your own comments. I think they just want to hear your thoughts. Again, this is just you.
Okay, I think I wouldn't say who is doing the best. Of course, they have an annual. I can't remember the name. Ranking of different developers lah. Yeah, CDL is doing extremely well. CDL CapitaLand. Yeah, CDL CapitaLand, they are doing extremely well. So I think the effort is, the whole trend is catching up even with the other smaller developers. And now there's something called green bond that DBS is pushing. In fact, a lot of other banks have got all these green bonds. So you see increasingly smaller developers are also taking up some of these green bonds. And what green bond does is that there are a set of criteria, that you take up the bond for financing. You finance, sustainability related topics. So green mark, BCA green mark, gold, platinum type of initiatives. US Green Building Council, US GBC, LED, you might have heard of it. And then there's GRESB, it's a European assessment type of organization. So a lot of these things are going on right now. So I think what is catching on is the awareness, and actually they are all driven by a lot of investments into this area, meaning that investors are increasingly very, very selective. If you are not green mark type of certified developer or building, you find it pretty hard to find investors, especially the big institutional investors from the West, because the awareness that they want a responsible investor. Yeah, so it's actually both hands got to clap. And what's more important is that you don't just do sustainability or green for the sake of doing green. It has to come with real business benefits. So in terms of utility savings, it's not in terms of lowering your carbon footprint and things like that. When carbon credit becomes tradable and things like that. So anyway, real business benefits. It's going to drive all these activities. That's what I believe. Not just because going to tell the whole world I'm green. That's it. But without tangible benefits.
Yeah, I agree. It's true. It's a lot on this responsible investing, which I think you repeated throughout this conversation. That's actually quite crucial for us to sort of move forward with this, right? To have proper impact. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I think this could come from an aspiring business owner actually. So they were talking about opportunities that could come out of this crisis, right, during this whole COVID situation. We talked about it from a career point of view, where some we could be upskilling or things like that. But what about from a business owner's perspective? What could be adopted into their business? How can they actually angle themselves to sort of position themselves in a good way to sort of tap to this market at this point of time?
Well, it depends on what business you're in. If you're selling cakes, I don't know. I'm just let's say if you're selling cakes, then I saw on TV. You have very interesting cakes, and then you sell them online. Then you have a loyal following of these people who just go online to shop for confectionery, shop for desserts and things like that. So everything has to have some sense of COVID in mind, that people's habits are changing. Things got to be done online. So I'm just using that as a very simple example, selling cakes, So of course, if you sell, gaming chairs, people work from home, right?
True, it's true.
So I heard it's a long wait list. So that's very directly, benefiting from the COVID situation, because, you need an ergonomic, human factor engineered, nice chair to work at home, to sit on, to do your conferencing. So yeah, I mean, it's identifying these kinds of opportunities that, COVID brings about, how to bring things online, how to go and reach that online viewership, that segment of the market, and the segment of the market that is now increasingly working from home. So this is going to grow. So if you can tailor your business and add value to this bunch of people that is actually their habits are being changed by COVID, I think, that's good opportunities there.
I completely agree. I think it's about understanding where the gaps currently and what sort of areas to focus on, right? Identifying these sort of spaces to really target the solution towards that area. Okay. I think I think this is actually a question that could come from someone from the communication side. Okay, so the question is posed, where actually do you see a gap where real estate companies are lacking in terms of communications towards its stakeholders? How do you think it can be improved, or it's quite an open-ended question.
I see. Let me think. Real estate companies, I think right now, the stakeholders, for example, the users of space, the users of the services are provided by the landlord, and of course the investors. I think this whole COVID situation right now has brought, I wouldn't say a very deep rift or divide between the tenants and the landlords. Tenants are saying that I'm dying. I need to survive. I got no rent. I got I got no sales.
Yeah.
So why am I still paying rent, right? And then landlord says that, you got no sales, I got no rent also, and my whole mall is empty, not by choice. I got to close down. So I think we are all in the same boat. So, tenants, of course, their life is tough. But landlord's life is not easy either, because I'm working on the landlord side. So, and then government has to step in. So we are very, very fortunate. Singapore government does dish out a lot of, incentives, all these support packages, rent abatements and things like that. Not other countries, For example, you look at Malaysia, there's no such thing as, support from the government. In Australia, no such thing. So we are very, very fortunate. I think the important thing about communicating with the stakeholders is to really, to bring forward that point that, we are in the same boat together, and what I can do to help you and what you can do to help me. So you got to sit down and look through, what are we doing together, rather than me protecting my interests, fence up, this is my turf, you better pay me rent. Okay. Yeah. And there, I got no sales, I'm not going to pay you rent. So it becomes a very confrontational situation. And that's not good communication. I think best communication is win-win, or I wouldn't say win-win, that you don't lose and I don't lose. Okay, situation, or you lose very little, I also lose very little situation, that we come together to find a solution. So I think the company I'm with has been very gracious. We talk to the tenants, we communicate with them and find their pain points. Important thing is to find their pain points. And for those very good tenants, we try our best to help them. But for some of the tenants that are, for example, trying their luck, the very recalcitrant ones, very, just trying to get a quick buck out of it, squeeze you. You have to be able to identify some of these guys. But most of them, by far, they are very good guys who are genuinely in trouble. So we have to understand. I think that's where I would see communication is. And also one level up, investors and us.
Yes.
You know, we talk to investors, and investors have also to be very understanding about the situation. Not say that, you know, I don't care, COVID or no COVID, I want my dividends. You know, I want your returns. You know, it doesn't make sense, right? So I think close communication is very, very important. Like, for example, our communication with our investors, you know, it used to be like once every 2 months, once a month. Now, you know, when COVID, we have it once every 2 weeks, you know, bi-weekly, fortnightly communication. So you will never be communicating too much. You know, they will appreciate, all the stakeholders will appreciate you telling them the situation. And not just telling them the situation, that's it. You know, you got to value add by finding a solution. They say, okay, this is what I will do. And then they'll be happy. You know, not just throwing the problem. This is the problem, I communicate to you, that's it. Not my problem anymore. Yeah. But be proactive in finding solutions and recommending them. I think that's the valuable communication to me.
I see. I see. This time, Ethan got.
Just a follow-up question on there, right?
Sure.
A lot of people have been talking about digitization, right? So from a communications perspective, how do you see the importance of digital communications, in communicating that messages that you brought about to our stakeholders, our tenants, our investors, our internal stakeholders and external stakeholders?
I think digital communication is a necessity now that we can't, because we can't meet face to face. So I mean, very thankfully, we have this thing called Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or whatever you call it, that we can still see face to face. We can see the facial expression. We can feel the emotions, even though we can't be together. We can hear from the tone of voice and look at your smile. Oh, Brendan has a very good smile. So
Thanks.
so I think that's very important. So you know, seeing somebody rather than hearing the voice, or worst case, a very cold email. Sometimes I hate emails that don't bring out the emotion. Sometimes wrong punctuation. You read it wrongly, you know. That, you know, he's actually having a good fun, you know, telling a joke, but you read it offensively, you know, and that's not good. So I think use as much as possible, you know, a face-to-face time. I mean, if COVID blows away, my biggest preference is actually to meet face-to-face or have a meal with my investors, you know, go talk to the tenants, you know, face-to-face, go visit them in the shop, you know, things like that. It's more personable. So I think nothing beats having a cup of coffee together and you know, pour out your heart to them and say, you know, not that you're suffering, I'm suffering too, you know. So I think that would be my mode of communication, yeah, rather than a very cold email.
I hear you. I think that's absolutely true. Like if you communications it's not just words, right? It's a lot on, like you mentioned, the sort of body language, tonality, so facial expression. Thank you for the smile compliment, by the way. So it's all part of that, being able to communicate effectively. So I think a combination of all that is crucial, right? That we do have some questions on the sort of investment side of things. Okay, I think just a few more before we sort of wrap up. How would you compare a career in investment management versus transaction execution? I think as a follow-up detail, right? They were saying that most people want to be in the deal team because it actually seems more glamorous, right? And they seem to get more credit actually when the whole transaction gets closed. But the thing is, Singapore is establishing itself as a sort of fund management hub as well, right? Yeah. So personally, as your advice with your years of experience, you know, what do you think is the better career path? You know, what do you think is the better route? Any advice from yourself, Joey?
I think, you know, no particular advice, because it all depends on the interest of the person. You know, glamour aside, yeah, I mean, probably the deal team, deal origination, deal transaction, you know, the M&A team would probably be that person with that big press release. But not to mention that, you know, if you manage a fund well, for example, you're a REIT CEO, you know, you return good investment returns to the shareholders. You know, you get into the limelight as well. So I think to me the limelight is not the main thing, you know, in choosing that career, but it's the interest of the person and how you foresee yourself adding value to that particular scope that you are in. For me, actually, you know, the deal or the fund management side of things, actually they work very closely hand in hand. At least from my experience back in China and right now in Singapore. Because, you know, the deal team can't get away with it, you know, because they have an underwriting, right? After doing the underwriting, if the fund manager manages it and they'll meet the underwriting because it's too aggressive, you know, who gets in trouble? I'll go back to the deal team and say, hello, is this realistic or not? Are you? So I think increasingly the companies are actually not putting these as two separate teams, but you know, of overall sort of a group that these two teams work hand in hand together. So the deal team won't go scotch-free, you know. After, you know, wash my hands, give it to the fund management team. That's it, you know. So some companies I see actually make that transition. The deal team person who did the deal, or that little team transitions from doing that deal and then also carrying through the fund management for the first few couple of years, you know. So at least, you know, you don't pluck figures from the sky, you know, and do your underwriting. You know, you manage it, you make sure you return what you promise in the underwriting to investors. So, well, there's no right or wrong answer. Which one is better? You know, there's every, you know, both sides have their own merits. So the worst situation is that you start having a team that start pointing fingers, you know. So the fund management team will be overly conservative because they are worried that, you know, you can't turn in the returns. So if you put your underwriting very conservatively, then you won't get the deal. So the deal team will complain or point out, hey, this kind of figures, how am I going to buy this asset with your kind of conservative figures? So two teams got to work hand in hand. So, you know, don't point fingers, and it's not a straight, it's not a clear line between the two departments. Yeah, so that's my take there.
I hope that was helpful for the one who was asking, because like I said, I think it's very important everybody is you know, working together as a team to sort of get the deal across the line, right? It's not just one singular effort. As much as there is glamour, it looks good, but you know, nothing happened without the other person from the back end, right? I think seeing how we are running short on time, okay, we will have one last question for you, Chong Min, so that at least you'll take a break.
Okay.
It's been a long session. Thank you so much. Okay.
No problem.
As a sort of last question, right? It's a good question at that, actually. What do you think makes a good fund manager? You know, how do you make sure that you actually you know, progress actually in terms of that sort of career and the sort of growth when it comes to fund management?
Okay. I think my personal take of doing fund management well is, you know, you have to take care of all aspects of the fund, and your knowledge of the assets is very important, because I think it's very bottoms up. The fund is only as good as the assets underneath, you know, that platform. So if the assets don't do well, it cannot turn in a good report card for the fund. So I think fund managers, my advice is that spend more time to understand the assets and where the pain points are, and work very, very closely with the operations team. So that may be contrary to a lot of setups that in you know, private equity funds, where the fund manager just sits on top and look at Excel spreadsheets, and you know, if the assets don't do well, they don't even know why the assets are not doing well. But I came from a background where I had exposure bottoms up from the asset level, you know, from facility management, property management, leasing, and all that. So I understand the pain points where the assets are feeling all the pains. So and you have to make the asset folks, the operations people understand where you're coming from, why we need to do things a certain way, because you need to turn in good returns to the investors. So is that very close relationship with the assets, that they understand what your expectations are, they can do what you need them to do, rather than, I'm just chasing for NOI, I'm just chasing for cash flow, I'm just chasing for higher rents. But when you get into a situation where you look at it from a strategic point of view, getting a higher rent tenant in and doing well for a number of years and with a very huge space may be more risky than getting a not so high rent tenant in for a longer number of years with a big space. And you look at it from a strategic point of view, and you crunch the numbers and you look at it and you work through with the leasing team, which one makes more sense, rather than always go for the rent. So I think that's the biggest take I have in terms of looking at the fundamentals bottoms up, knowing about leasing, knowing about asset management. I think that is important to make a good fund manager. Of course, that's my experience. A lot of companies don't have that structure. So asset management and ops and fund management, totally two different things. And the fund manager will never understand what the asset ops are doing. And so there's a divide. So I think if we can bridge this gap and break through this communication barrier, I think the funds will do very, very well with the great support from the asset ops people. And then of course, the fund manager has to look at the top-down things like cash flow management, how to do good capital structure in terms of debt and equity. How to bring back dividends. Manage the cash flows, things like that. Tax efficiency, things like that. That's nothing to do with ops. That's fund manager's bread and butter. That's his role. At the top fund level. But what I was speaking about is that bottoms-up level where the assets are actually working very, very, very hard for the fund's performance. Yeah. Okay, that's my take.
Wow, thank you so much, Chong Min. It's a great session. I hope that our participants for this webinar also find it very useful and helpful. Chong Min spoke about his personal career path, gave a lot of technical sharing in his specialization. At the end of the day, whatever Chong Min shared, I think there's one singular point, right? At the end of the day, it's all about starting from bottom and looking at it from the building blocks perspective. Work on the fundamentals. As long as we get our fundamentals right, everything will fall in place, right? Be it fund management, down to asset management, even down to the philosophy of life. So thank you so much, Chong Min, and thank you so much, our fellow.
Pleasure.
We will post this on our website as well as online on our LinkedIn page. So if you are keen to revisit this session and to get inspired again by Chong Min, please feel free to watch this webinar. Meanwhile, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next session. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Chong Min.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.